Welcome, everyone, to the beautiful campus of the University of Notre Dame. It's an unseasonably warm day here. It's actually sunny out. It's almost kind of the sweater weather. We know it won't last for long, but we really enjoy it. It is quiet on campus. It is the eve of the final day of classes for our students for this first semester. And finals will occur from Monday to Friday of next week. So it's an intense time. Students are rigorous at study and trying to catch up and be prepared for all those final papers and tests that lie ahead of them. Please keep them in their prayers. As you know, there are some students still like me who have left too much to last minute and are feeling kind of stressed out right now, and I'm sure could use your prayers. But after this next week, they're going to have a great Christmas and winter break. They won't return to classes until January 17th. So it's a long, great to be a student again and to have that kind of time off. It's an exciting time and an unconventional time that the World Cup is playing in the background, especially so close to the Christmas season. And, sad to see the U.S. bow out, but they had certainly a respectable showing. But as somebody who lives with 6 Brazilian citizens in my house, I have to say that we have a strong team in Brazil out there. And I'm going out on the line here right now. So you can send me your emails when I'm incorrect here. But I'm predicting a record 6th World Championship for the Brazilian selection. So we'll see if that plays out in the coming weeks. We are thrilled today to be joined by Professor Dan Kelly. He is the faculty director of Notre Dame's Fitzgerald Institute for Real Estate. The acronym, a great acronym, is FIRE, Fitzgerald Institute for Real Estate. And anybody who knows Ward and Kathy Fitzgerald, you know that they embody, the lead benefactors, embody the fire of the Holy Spirit and the drive for excellence. So it's an appropriate acronym on several levels. Dan is a professor of law here at Notre Dame, and he offers courses on property law and economics. He returned to Notre Dame, I should say, after serving as a judicial clerk on the U.S. Court of Appeals in the Second Circuit. He also served as an attorney in New York City and a research fellow at both Yale and Harvard. Dan earned his dual degrees, undergrad in economics and history at Notre Dame in 2002. He's a young man. And then he received his JD from Harvard Law School. Dan, welcome. Tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, to get started. Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about your family and your path to Notre Dame.
Sure, Lou. It's great to be here. So I grew up just outside of Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago. Both my parents were teachers growing up. I have one older brother who's Notre Dame class of 1994. So it's fair to say from a very early age, Notre Dame was in my blood for a couple of reasons. One, my grandfather actually, who never went to college, he actually was a salesperson selling scrap metal at a junkyard in Chicago. Never went to college, but his boss actually had 4 tickets to Notre Dame football games. And so growing up, he would occasionally take both my grandfather and then on rare occasions, my father, as well as his older brother who went to Notre Dame. And so because of my grandfather, who actually was a Subway alum, never went to Notre Dame, but just developed this love for Notre Dame, from a very early age, Notre Dame was very much on our radar screen. They have those commercials sometimes about, are you teaching your infant baby anything about Notre Dame? And the couple says, oh no. But then at the end of the commercial, they said, oh, his first words were fighting Irish. That was a little bit what it was like for me growing up, always wearing the Notre Dame gear when I was a youngin'. That's
fantastic. And now you've got a beautiful family. I know you've got 5 kids, the same as us, and we are in the same neighborhood. Some of our children are good friends. Tell us a little bit about your family. You live right down Notre Dame Avenue, so you are an easy walk to the law school, and it's a beautiful home. And you were one of those early settlers to kind of repopulate Notre Dame Avenue.
Yeah, it's really a dream come true in all respects. So Notre Dame is my dream job. Teaching at Notre Dame, serving as the faculty director for fire, working at the law school with so many great colleagues, just a dream job. And then, as you say, on top of it, I can walk to campus. So Notre Dame, as you know, and as everybody listening in knows, is a very special place for a number of reasons. And one of the reasons why it's so special is just the beauty of the campus. And so to be able to walk up Notre Dame Avenue every morning, see the dome, go into work, fired up, to teach law students, fired up to help Notre Dame undergraduate students, it really is a dream come true. In terms of my family, I was blessed because one of the great things that happened to me as a student at Notre Dame was that I met, fell in love with, and ultimately married my college sweetheart, who's also class of 2002, Kate Dewar, now Kate Kelly. As you mentioned, we have 5 beautiful children. And so it really is a dream to not only be working here and teaching here and having so many good colleagues, but also to have my children growing up around the campus and experiencing what makes Notre Dame so special.
So it is a great privilege, isn't it, to raise a family, to raise children under the shadow of the dome, and to have them surrounded by the values and ethos of this place. An emphasis on faith and service and on education and on community. All of those things have, I say sometimes that it's hard to screw our kids up, even with our bad parenting techniques from time to time, because they're surrounded by so many wonderful families like yours. So it's a great additional blessing to raising a family here. So tell us, what brought you back to Notre Dame, Dan? You were thriving in New York. You were on a great career trajectory. What brought you back to Notre Dame Law?
So I loved the East Coast. That's where my wife is from. So I spent the early part of my career there. Loved being a practicing attorney for the short time that I did it. But I always knew that I wanted to do more. I always knew that I wanted to help students through teaching, that I wanted to help generate ideas and do research and create knowledge that could affect, help change the world, help society improve. Mm-hmm. And so I've always had that passion for the law. And that was sort of planted in me ever since I was an undergrad at Notre Dame. I studied econ and history, but I really knew that I wanted to dive into the law and to tackle these major legal policy issues. And so even though I was loving things in New York and on the East Coast, when the opportunity came up to actually be hired by the University of Notre Dame, I couldn't say no. I knew it would just have such an impact. And being a practicing attorney is one thing, and you do get to help clients and you add a lot of value. But I always knew both that I wanted to teach students and do research. And then when the opportunity to transition and help with the new real estate program came, I said, wow, this is a way that I can take my background in law and actually apply it to something very tangible like real estate, where you can help so many people, whether it's in housing, whether it's in commercial real estate or industrial real estate, whether it's helping nonprofits and the Catholic Church with their real estate. There's just so many aspects in which not only the law, but the law and business and architecture and engineering have such a tangible impact on society and so many individuals. I said, sign me up.
That's fantastic. Well, we're going to hear a little bit very soon here about how the Fitzgerald Institute for Real Estate has taken the campus by storm and already in its short tenure having a huge impact nationally, globally, in so many different dimensions. But before that, tell us, where did your passion for real estate come from?
Really, I think I would say two answers there. One is, ever since I was small, I always loved thinking about places, thinking about geography, looking at maps and cities and how cities are formed. So I always used to tell my parents, who I said were both teachers, if you could get a PhD in geography or something like that, sign me up. I just love thinking about the world as well as sort of the economic and history behind it. And then when it really crystallized was taking what I learned at Notre Dame. And when I was in law school, I really got interested in the issues of how do we actually assemble land? How do we take different pieces of real estate and assemble it into a bigger, better project? And one example of this is actually the Eddy Street Commons, right adjacent to campus here, and how that was assembled. And they were able to take, an area that had been fragmented and assemble most of it. Now, if you notice when you walk down Eddy Street, there actually is one holdout, one person who didn't sell. Yeah. And that was the issue that initially sparked my interest, not on Eddy Street, but there were a number of legal cases at the time, including one that the U.S. Supreme Court took, Kelo versus City of New London, that dealt with this issue of, can the government use the power of eminent domain to actually take property from a private owner and give it to another private owner? Or are there alternatives? Are there market-based alternatives in which we might still get good assemblies of land, but that wouldn't resort to forcing people out of their homes? So that was the initial thing that during law school, I was like, wow, this raises so many amazing issues of philosophy and of history. And do we respect individual property rights, or do we do what's best for the community and the public interest? Is there a way to have our cake and eat it too? Can we have genuine economic development in cities, right, especially coming off of urban renewal and all the sort of bad ways that we've tried to do it in the past? Can we do it better going forward? And so the opportunity to start writing about those issues at Notre Dame Law School and then teach about them, I said, wow, again, sign me up.
It's a great example to look at, the Eddy Street Commons and how that has revolutionized, that real estate development project revolutionized life at Notre Dame, not just for our students, but for our faculty and staff who live here and, like you, want to walk or bike to work and to have a Trader Joe's in the neighborhood. And then for so many of our alumni, parents, and friends who come back and want to dine right by campus or participate in the other amenities there, the apartments, et cetera. So tell us a little bit about FIRE, the Fitzgerald Institute for Real Estate. What is the scope of this initiative? It just began in 2019, so it's really nascent on the landscape of Notre Dame history. But what have you seen as its core mission and impact?
Sure. So you're exactly right. We're essentially a startup. We just launched in 2019, right before COVID hit. So we've only been up and running about 3.5 years. Our core mission and goal is to be one of the premier institutes focused on the study and research of real estate in the country, bar none. But we want to do that in a very distinctive Notre Dame way. So part of that is educating students and forming students, again, teaching them the fundamentals of real estate, including real estate finance, urban economics, architecture, real estate law, but also teaching them about some of the larger issues. What are the ethical issues you confront, either in investing in real estate, developing real estate, thinking about how we form cities and sustainable practices. So part of it's education. Part of it is research, what we're trying to do. We're trying to activate faculty all across campus. We're a university institute. So we have multi-disciplines involved. We have the Mendoza College of Business, the School of Architecture, the College of Engineering, Arts and Letters, especially the Department of Economics. We have the law school. Really, almost every college and school is involved with what we're trying to do. And so we're trying to take the education component, the research component, and say, wow, we can do a lot of things that are consistent with Notre Dame's mission. And I have a slide here that kind of illustrates the basics of that. So one of the initial things we thought of is, we have such amazing undergraduates. How can we expose them to real estate? And by real estate, Lou, I want to say real estate covers a broad spectrum of things. Like some people, and probably when I was growing up, if you mentioned real estate to me, I would think like HGTV. Or one of the shows about flipping houses. But real estate is, or some people think it's only about rich people, right? This is just for profit. Yeah. But it's really about so much more than that.
So look at this. I mean, I look at this chart and I see 25 courses in real estate. That has been a meteoric rise just in the last few years. And my understanding is the real estate minor that you pioneered maybe, I don't know, a couple of years ago is the fastest growing minor on campus. Can you tell us, this is pun intended here when I say this whole institute has caught fire. It's captured the imagination of our students. Give us a little bit of the impact on how it's engaged students in many different ways.
Absolutely. So the student demand for real estate, really on all levels, definitely the undergraduates, but also the MBAs, law students, other graduate students, it has far surpassed our expectations. It was funny when initially we got this approved through Father John and Provost Tom Burrish at the time were there. One of the questions that Father John asked us was, well, Dan, in the first year, this all sounds great, but how many students do you think, are going to enroll in this or apply for this? And we said, well, based on our prior benchmarking, Father, we think about 30, maybe 15 from the Mendoza College of Business and 15 from other majors, because it's not just limited to business, it's university-wide. Right. So we said maybe 30. And within the first 24 hours of opening the application window, we had over 30 applications. And that first semester, we had over 100. We could only accept 70 because we didn't have all those courses set up yet.
Right.
And in just the 3 years, if you look at sort of the graph, the chart of semester by semester, the undergrads are so enthused because they see the importance of how real estate can change lives. They see how if you do real estate correctly, I mean, COVID-19 is a good illustration of this, I think, Lou. I mean, we all kind of take real estate for granted, but with COVID-19, all of a sudden, office space, how much of it do we use it? Where does it belong? Industrial and logistics. How do we have supply chains? Residential and the housing crisis, hospitality and hotels, all of these asset classes, where we go to school closures, where do we pray, our churches, all of these places that we often take for granted. There's a huge amount that goes on, both in terms of the size of the asset class, but also how it affects real people. And our students understand that. That's why they're signing up for the minor in real estate in droves. I think now we're actually up to 442 students. We're the largest minor on campus. And like you said, it's only been 3+ years, and already we're doing 442 students. We've had our first couple graduating classes. And the students, not only are they getting educational experiences, they're also getting co-curricular experiences. We have real estate treks to Chicago, to New York, to California. We had our first course in Thailand. We're doing one in Puerto Rico. So they're getting these co-curricular activities. They're also increasingly getting internships and jobs in real estate. And we have, in addition to those 442 students, the undergraduates have a real estate club. Mm-hmm. And there's now over 600 undergraduates who are in that club, about 200 active members. And the 6 officers of the club, they're getting unbelievable jobs in real estate. They're getting jobs at the top firms. And what they're going to do long term, I hope, is have an impact in the way the real estate investment, development, construction, sustainability, all those practices will be a force for good, because it's going to be Notre Dame students who are going to be the leaders of those firms.
Well, you've spelled out how many and varied and diverse ways that real estate affects our lives, right? Commercial, residential, industrial, religious, educational, so many different dimensions, supply side dynamics. It's really, give us a scope. How vast is the real estate asset class when we look at it compared to others?
Real estate is the world's largest asset class, bar none. Mm-hmm. More than stocks, more than bonds, more than all of the tech companies. In fact, real estate is such a large asset class in total value. It's the same as all the other asset classes combined. So it really, when we think about it in that way, it is something that we think, wow, how can we not have a program at Notre Dame?
Right.
And that minor in real estate is in partnership with the Mendoza College of Business. Right. So the Mendoza College of Business and the Department of Finance have been great. Given what a big asset class it is, how can the College of Business and how can Notre Dame not have real estate on its radar screen?
Right.
But I do want to emphasize, Lou, that it's not just about the financial value of real estate, even though I'm the first person to say that's huge. And I mean, look at the great financial crisis in 07-08. That was real estate driven, right? Because the mortgage crisis, the ripple effects it has through the global economy, real estate's a huge asset class. But even in our day-to-day lives, right, in terms of how we treat other people, in terms of, I mean, Notre Dame is a great example. think about the University of Notre Dame if we didn't have the real estate in the campus that we have, right?
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is bring that sense of placemaking, bring that sense of purpose, that real estate should be purposeful,
Yeah.
and say, hey, everybody, it's not just sort of the top 10% or the top 1% or the elite universities. Everyone, from the person who's homeless to the working class firefighter or police officer or first responder, everyone, both in the US and even globally. I mean, when you think about real estate globally, a whole nother set of issues. So we really think that this really affects all of us in our daily lives.
I think you may have already answered the next question, which just by that last answer, which is what makes the Notre Dame real estate fire program distinctive? And I think the heart and soul that you just put into that last question is part of it. This isn't just about taking students and placing them in and the biggest real estate firms, the biggest REITs, making the most money. There's many more dimensions to it. Can you give us a sense of how fire is distinct at Notre Dame from other real estate programs at other top universities?
Absolutely. I would say three things. So number one, I would say, and we've already alluded to this, but we're trying to be intentionally interdisciplinary. At most universities, Lou, real estate gets siloed. It's either only in the business school, or it's only in the policy school, or only in the School of Architecture. From the beginning, on the academic side, there's been a very intentional move to say, and this is the reason I'm involved, because they said, hey, we need somebody from the law school to, be part of this initial committee. We want to be interdisciplinary because the industry itself involves multiple disciplines. So it wouldn't make sense if in the real world, everything, you have construction folks talking to sustainability folks, talking to architects, talking to developers, and all this needs to be financed. And it has macro implications and micro implications on the econ side. It wouldn't make sense if that's what's happening in the real world for the academic side to say, oh, well, we're just going to look at this one particular silo.
Right.
Too often universities, I think, do that, and that's a shortcoming. At Notre Dame, we said we want to be different. We want it to be multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. Number two, we're different because I think the mission focus, the Catholic character and mission of Notre Dame as a force for good, from the beginning, that's informed everything that we've done. We've been very intentional about that as well. And not only are we doing things that are consistent with Notre Dame's Catholic character and mission, but to further that. So two examples I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later. One is we think Notre Dame should be a leader in housing and communities. There's such a need, both, from your work at the Center for the Homeless, there's such a need at so many different levels for more housing, better quality housing, more affordable housing, more dignified housing, safer housing. So Notre Dame has a tremendous, tremendous potential. And it's not just the Fitzgerald Institute. We're working with partners in the School of Architecture who are focused on this issue. Right. We're working with the Lab for Economic Opportunities and colleagues in the Department of Economics. We're working for the Center for Civic Innovation and the College of Engineering. So this has to really be all hands on deck at Notre Dame to help solve housing. And then as well, the Catholic Church herself and other religious denominations, they have a lot of land and property when you look around, but often they don't have the expertise and they're not generating the knowledge of what is the best practice, what is the latest research, and how can that inform what we're doing. And then last but not least, Lou, I would say the thing that really separates the Notre Dame real estate program from the others, and I think is going to be a huge comparative advantage, both now and going forward, is our unbelievable, and I'm not exaggerating, our unsurpassed alumni, parents, and friends network in real estate. Yeah. Literally, I'm amazed because we never had a real estate program, right? But we have so many alumni, so many parents, so many friends of the university who are just doing amazing things in all aspects of real estate, housing, construction. That we're already, we just launched 3 years ago. I would say, Lou, we have the top 2 alumni network along with Wharton of any program in the country. And I would say our alumni and parents and friends are more dedicated to Notre Dame and our program than even Wharton.
That's fantastic. I know how energized so many people are from across this country and also globally that are engaging with fire right now and lending not only their counsel to the program, but offering internships and jobs, for our students and all that. So you've tapped into that brilliantly, and the start to the Fitzgerald Institute for Real Estate is, I think, you said it well before, it's exceeded everyone's expectations. So let me ask you, you touched on church. When we look at the Catholic Church, is it accurate that the Catholic Church is the largest landowner in the world today?
Yes, almost got it precisely right. I guess I put one qualifier: the largest non-governmental landowner.
Okay.
Because technically, it depends how you count it. These statisticians can count it different ways, but technically, like Canada has a lot, or the Queen of England owns a lot of land, including Canada, right?
Yeah.
The King of Saudi Arabia owns all of Saudi Arabia. But putting aside a few governmental exceptions,
Right.
it is absolutely the case that the Catholic Church, I mean, if you think about all of the dioceses, all of the religious orders, it owns the most property.
So, I worked, one of my first paying job, didn't pay a lot, was working for the Diocese of Orlando, heading up their global mission office for 3 years. And I worked in the chancery offices with the Bishop of Orlando. And many folks who are called to the ministry, to the priesthood in particular, are overseeing all of these assets, in real estate assets, both buildings and land and schools and churches and retreat centers, et cetera. But they have zero training when it comes to kind of property management. Tell us, how has the real estate, Fitzgerald Real Estate Institute been able to step in and lend a hand, and what do you see in the future in that area?
Absolutely, there's a huge need. Because as you said, the Catholic Church, as well as other religious denominations, so it's the Catholic Church, but we're not the only ones that have this. We think Notre Dame can help across the board. But absolutely correct. I was amazed to see how many dioceses and archdioceses, and the total value of this property is astounding, but also the total mission-aligned impact that it could or should be having. It's literally almost limitless.
Yeah.
But as you said, the expertise about basic real estate fundamentals and principles is often not there. So what we have decided to do, and this is our church properties initiative led by David Murphy and Maddie Johnson, what we've decided to do is, in any way that we can help, and we get a lot of requests via email. We put out a website saying, hey, we're the Fitzgerald Institute for Real Estate, and one of our initiatives is church property. Immediately, we're getting emails from all over the United States and all over the world, in part because no other university is doing anything having to do with religiously affiliated property.
Right.
We get these requests, and so what we've done is we've said, hey, we're going to do research and understand the data. How can you manage your real estate portfolio or decide to do with what your real estate when you don't even know what you own? And some of the dioceses and archdioceses don't even have an accurate record of what's in their portfolio. So the first thing is, we're using really cutting edge tools, geographic information systems, GIS, to implement where are these properties? What properties does the diocese or religious order own? Where are they, and what are they being used for right now? And we've actually launched a pilot right here locally with the Diocese of Fort Wayne South Bend, in which we have tracked all 14 counties that make up that diocese to use GIS to map them. But that's just stage one. Yeah. Stage two is, what is the priest, the sister, the bishop, what do they want to do? What are their priorities, right? Instead of thinking about this small, like, oh, well, the Catholic Church, there's fewer priests now than maybe there used to be, or fewer people, at least in some, regions, are coming to mass. And there's kind of this, we're shrinking mentality. What we want to say is, well, one of our big assets here is all this real estate. And if we want to start a new way of evangelizing people and reaching especially young people, why not start thinking a little bit outside of the box in how we can repurpose some of this real estate? So
let me ask you this. Interrupt here, Dan, for a second. I just read about one of the, I think the story is best told via an example. And I just read the press release, Notre Dame press release recently, about the role the Fitzgerald Institute Real Estate played with a parish in Austin, Texas, adjacent to the University of Texas, that was struggling, and that you guys intervened and with some other partners. And can you give us a glimpse of the transformation you were able to bring about for that parish?
Sure. That was our first case study. So St. Austin's Catholic Church Parish and School in Austin, Texas. I'll just give you a glimpse of, or a snapshot of the picture and sort of what happened, because we actually think it is a model for what others could do, especially others that have really nice properties that are valuable. So essentially what happened is the parish facility and the church and the school were not in good shape. But fortunately for them, they are in one of the booming cities of the American Southwest, Austin, Texas, and they're adjacent to the UT campus. So what they decided to do, and if they just ran sort of the old fundraising campaign, hey, let's have everybody donate and have a thermometer and see how much we can get, they never would have been able to get this project off the ground. But instead, the strategy was, well, if we can get the other property that we're currently not using that's next to us, we own it, but we're not using it, and we can get the local zoning authorities, back to real estate law, to upzone the property so we can build student housing on it, we can enter into a 99-year ground lease with a major real estate developer and working with the developer because they still own all the property. They haven't sold any property, which is another thing that we're pretty big on, is not just a fire sale of the assets.
Yeah.
They lease it, and with the revenue stream that they get from that, they were able to build a $45 million brand new facility for the parish and the school. So it's just an unbelievable use of leveraging your real estate for a mission-aligned purpose.
So they built a multi-storied building in this dense area. Is this correct? They used the first couple of floors for the parish and the school enterprise, and then they financed this whole project and the expansion and many of the kind of operations of the parish through student housing on the upper floors for University of Texas students. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You have it exactly right. And their ability to do that, because they didn't sell it, then, as you said, some of the floors, like the gym that was for the new student development, they were able to use that as that new gym. The offices, the parking, we have other examples, and we teach our students. We launched a new church real estate class, Lou, last spring that I co-taught with David Murphy. And the student demand for that class, it's a Catholicism and the disciplines class here at Notre Dame. The student demand was off the charts. And we show them that example, and we've done this case study, but we've also shown them examples where the church has said, okay, we'll sell this. And then they build something, new and hideous next door, and the parish or the diocese has no say in what happens there.
Right. That's a brilliant example. It's really, really impressive. Tell us whether it's in this church properties initiative or in any other dimension, what are some of the recent projects that you have been focused on and working on through the Fitzgerald Institute?
Sure. So I think we have several things that are very mission aligned and several things that are distinctively Notre Dame and interdisciplinary. So I'll just mention a couple briefly. So one is we launched a new Braun program in construction and real estate development. So that's a joint initiative between the Fitzgerald Institute and the Civil Engineering Department over in the College of Engineering. And that's had an immediate impact because we were able to hire a professor. Construction, really has never been taught at all at Notre Dame, but this professor has both a PhD in construction and also worked in the real world for some of the major construction companies. And he's already offering new classes for our students. We think long-term, that could be a big area. When you think about construction and how it intersects with sustainability and building materials and all the environmental concerns, as well as the resiliency concerns that go into that, we think Notre Dame should be at the forefront. Another one, which we alluded to earlier, is we think very mission aligned is the housing initiative. So we're supporting researchers across campus who are doing some really interesting research. I'll give you just one example, Lou, because it comes to mind. It's a paper that, and again, this is top quality research. It's getting placed in the top journals, but it also has direct impact for how we think about housing in the community. So what this professor, and he's Evan Mast in the econ department, basically said, well, I want to look at the issue of when there's new market rate housing that's introduced into a city, what is the effect on affordability across the board? What is the effect? Because oftentimes the criticism of new housing is, oh, well, that's all the sort of expensive stuff, or that's all the luxury stuff.
And it gentrifies a neighborhood, right?
And it gentrifies, right?
Yeah.
But one theory is that whenever, this is sort of, basic supply and demand, right? Whenever you increase the supply of something, the price should go down. And the key to his paper was the mechanism for how that happens, which is if you increase the supply really anywhere along the spectrum, what happens then is that people move, right? The world isn't stagnant, it's dynamic. So
Mhm.
people, even if it's nice new market rate housing, like maybe that student housing that we talked about in Austin, people
Mhm.
will say, well, I'm going to live there because that's a nice new product. And when
Mhm.
that person moves, it opens up a spot for somebody else. And then that somebody else will move into that. And so on. There's a chain or sequence down the line. And
Yeah.
he basically showed that, yes, affordability increases along the spectrum. And it's a very well done paper. He looks at 12 different cities. He has address level data to see where people move. And that's kind of outside the box thinking. I mean, Lou, for decades, we've been trying to move the needle on housing affordability. I mean, ever since LBJ and the Great Society, right? It's
Yes.
been a huge problem with poverty and housing. And
Yeah.
there's several great units across campus, including Leo and us and others who are working on this. But we need innovative ideas. We can't have
Mhm.
the same old policies, just throwing money at things without measuring what's the evidence that it actually works,
Right.
without thinking outside the box about how real estate and housing markets works. And that's
Yes.
what we're trying to do at FIRE and at Notre Dame.
That's fantastic. There's so many wonderful things that are coming out of the Fitzgerald Institute for Real Estate, and you're just getting started. You hosted a big conference recently on church property, in particular, which my understanding is was incredibly successful. Give us a glimpse into some of the topics that came up in that conference.
So the conference was right here at Notre Dame. It was on the future of church properties. It involved academics from Georgetown, Villanova, Duke, Rutgers. A number of faculty from Notre Dame participated. But in addition to the academics, actually most of the more than 200 plus people were either folks from the nonprofit side,
Mhm.
including several leading church officials. We had 3 or 4 CFOs from the Archdiocese of Chicago and other archdioceses around the country.
Hmm.
We had nonprofits, both small ones and large ones, who said, hey, we think what you're doing at Notre Dame on this issue of church properties is great. And we also had some industry experts, some real estate people from the top real estate firms. We brought all these people together in one room here at Notre Dame at McKenna Hall. And the conversation was just astounding. The level of both sort of faith and, hey, we need to do this for all of our churches, the level of expertise in real estate, the academic presentations that inform people. There was a tangible synergy in the room that was going on. And this was just the first conference. We
Right.
highlighted the St. Austin case study. People
Mhm.
thought that was amazing. We had Bishop Rhodes from the Diocese of Fort Wayne, South Bend, talk about what we're doing locally. So the conference was a huge success, again, due to the credit of both David Murphy and Maddie Johnson from our team. And I also have to give credit to our team, Lou, Jason Arnold and Gino Acosta during the first few years, all the stuff we talked about earlier with the students and the career placement and making things run. It's because those two have been helping so much. And also you alluded to it earlier, Lou, but we couldn't have done any of this without the support of our alumni, parents, and friends.
Mhm.
I mean, the people who support us financially, we're very grateful to. As you said, we're growing. So going forward, we have a lot of big ideas, a lot of things, but it's
Yeah.
not just the financial side. I mean, that's key, but it's also people volunteering to give guest lectures. We've had amazing guest lectures, how real estate developers can be a force for good, right?
Right.
As an example of what our students are getting exposed to. We have people who want to teach as adjuncts. One example is Mike O'Malley. Mike has been teaching a class. Literally, he's been commuting from Austin, Texas, each semester to teach our students. That's the kind of dedication and care that
Yeah.
our alumni have for this place and what we can do going forward. And he didn't do it as sort of now I got to get on a plane again. He comes fired up
Sure.
to teach our students, fired
Yeah.
up to teach them about real estate and what Notre Dame and how we can be a force for good.
One final question, Dan. You've been so gracious with your time, but tell us a little bit about your dreams for the Fitzgerald Institute for Real Estate and the impact that it can have not only on our students, but on the world. Um, where do you see the Institute 5, 10 years down the line?
We spent a lot of time thinking about that.
Mhm.
And because we think there are big things ahead. We want to continue to hire the best and brightest faculty who are, engaged with Notre Dame, who understand Notre Dame's mission. I think we need to hire a lot of faculty, both because, of those 442 students, and that's increasing every semester. We need more faculty to teach them.
Right.
We also need more faculty to do research. And that's across the board. That's with
Mhm.
Mendoza College of Business, School of Architecture, Law School. We need more faculty. And the fully formed vision, I think, Lou, is this. when we have the students, we have that amazing alumni, parents, and friends network. And once we get those faculty in place, the ceiling is very high in terms of what Notre Dame can do to create places of lasting value. That's our motto and our theme. How does Notre Dame, through what we do with knowledge generation, through what we do with educating and forming students, and what we do with our mission-aligned impact, how can Notre Dame help to create places of lasting value? The places that actually help people to grow spiritually, academically, socially, our communities. There's so much division right now. Our communities, both in the United States and globally, we think real estate is a huge, huge part of that.
Well, there's no doubt about it, Dan. Father Soren, 180 years ago, almost to the day, envisioned that Notre Dame would become not only one of the great universities in the land, but more importantly, one of the most powerful means for good. And what you and your team are doing through the Fitzgerald Institute for Real Estate to use that vehicle as a way to influence good in the world is undeniable. And we're only limited by our own creativity going forward, because you're already beginning to touch on so many different areas of the human condition and in our communal life that it's really, really exciting. So we talk here a lot about being mission-centered and market-sensitive. And I can't think of a better example than Fire and what you're doing. Thank you for your extraordinary leadership. And we're really lucky to have you back here at your home at Notre Dame and leading this important endeavor. And as we always do, Dan, we invite everyone to please join with us at your workplace and your homes, and we will pray accordingly and appropriately the prayer to Our Lady on the feast day of the Immaculate Conception. In a special way, we say, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Thank you all for being with us. Take care. God bless. Thank you, Dan. All of us, let's go Irish.
Thanks, Lou.